Hey, thanks for coming. I think some of you are from Japan, some of you long-term residents, and some of you are coming from abroad. So today, our background, or my background is I run a business in Japan. I've been doing it for about 4 years. There's a lot more experience in the room, 20 years, 30 years. So other people might have more perspective, so please talk to them. Oh, we got to fix it.
Go on under. Later. There you go. Yeah, make sure it doesn't fall up.
Okay. I keep things fairly high level, but my hope is you guys can walk away with some high level perspective, some frameworks on how to think or take in some of the experiences you guys are going to have if you guys do commit to Japan. We help a lot of people run businesses remotely. So I'll talk a little bit to that. Our background in that is we service mail. We're a mail scanning service and back office support. We help property owners who aren't here full time. They might have a holiday home. Airbnb operators and corporations who have expansion in Japan but might have their headquarters abroad and want to get their mail digitally instead of physically every 2 months. So yeah. Before talking about doing business remotely, I think we should talk about doing business in Japan in general, and some of the things that we've learned or I've learned starting a business here. And the first is I want to talk about why Japan is awesome. I think we all get caught up in the difficulties and we forget the other side of that, which is how amazing it is for the average person to live a life here. I came because I fell in love with the culture, but when you actually think about your experience here, there's some data points that I want to highlight. The first is the life expectancy is 84 years and up. That's pretty good. The second is almost everybody can read. I think it's actually at 99%, you could say everybody is educated here. And lastly, it's very safe. It's about 30 times safer than the US. So the point is Japan is getting some things right, and some of what you love here or might come to love here or not realize is so great about the experience here. To do that, they have to have certain strengths. And you might feel some of those strengths, the back end of those, as friction or frustrations, paperwork, due diligence. But I just on the back of that, please keep that in mind. A stat I came across recently, which I think also speaks to another part of Japan, which is its heritage, is 6 out of the 10 oldest operating companies in the world are Japanese. The oldest one, Kongo Gumi, was actually purchased in 2006. But if you pause and think about what this means for a second, you're not planning just for your next quarter if you have a company that's been around for centuries. You have people that have gone through technology change, political change. People are committed not just, you had generations of people commit to a brand, an idea. And I think that says a lot about the long-term planning nature in Japan that we don't always have when we think about things in the US. People really think things through. They're not just thinking about tomorrow's profit. Sometimes they are, but I think there's a bigger picture culturally here that people take in. Another data point I like to talk about is the experience of Airbnb and Uber coming into Japan. There's a great podcast episode about this from somebody local by Disrupting Japan. I don't know if does anyone know that podcast?
Yeah.
It's great. They do good stuff. Yeah. In the US, disruption was a strength. Fuck the local taxi industry. Fuck the regulator. Sorry. But like the citizens were on the side of these platforms that were delivering amazing value, even though they weren't always doing it in a way that would be compliant. Uber took that same approach in Japan. It did not work. it had the complete opposite. Here, it's not that they always trust the government, but let's just say they trust a lot more than private industry. They want to be good citizens. They want to do right by their responsibility. Both companies had to rewrite their playbooks. They had to come in as participants. How do we help? They had to educate and say how they could participate positively. And there's just a lot of rules. I know Anton spoke a little bit to there's gray areas and stuff. But if you think about those gray areas even, there's a lot of communication going on. There's, who are the stakeholders locally? You're not just diving in and going into a gray area. You're doing your homework. You're talking to people. So anyways, I highly recommend. But yeah, I think this kind of emphasizes the cultural norms here. You're gonna have longer term planning. You're gonna have a lot more focus on harmony and transparency. There's a high sense of personal responsibility, and following rules is a good idea, in my experience. Our product and what we sell to the local Japanese market. We also sell here to people who are from abroad. Things that we've learned specifically in our dealings with Japanese customers is if something works, why change it? If we bring our solution to a place that already has something functioning, even if ours is better, why would I take the risk personally of bringing this into my company as a Japanese worker when I have something working, right? Why would I risk disruption? If you're going to prize stability, even if you have something slightly better, why be the one to mess up what's working for no real upside other than saving a few days or maybe even a month? And lastly, people don't want to people would much rather the responsibility fall on process. So if you're trying to sell to a Japanese corporation, for example, and that person has to take the responsibility versus the process of their procurement is going to take the responsibility. This speaks to paperwork. I mean, they ask you for so much detail and they want to know so many things, but it's really they're trying to avoid taking risk personally. They're trying to avoid that by showing that they got everything they could. If it's the fault, it's not theirs, it's the process. So, does that make sense, guys? Sorry. All right, thanks. This is where we started having a lot of success. The first was we started communicating in Japanese. I don't speak to Japanese stakeholders personally. I go in always with a translator. When I go personally, it doesn't go anywhere. I don't speak good enough Japanese. Anton, previously, I thought your Japanese was quite impressive. I was a little envious. I always seek permission. You talked about meeting neighbors and things like that. We operate in a somewhat high regulatory space. We receive mail. It's governed by Japan. Japan has a few essentially legal acts. They're trying to prevent fraud. We didn't have to, but we decided to proactively seek permission from stakeholders, whether that was the post office. We help action mail, so things like paying a utility bill, so our payment processor, all these different stakeholders, we actively engaged. And we got amazing responses. They were excited. And they also said, no, do it like this. This is how you do it correctly. So I highly recommend that. Don't hide, because then they're going to think you're hiding something. Don't get caught. If you do something wrong, I actually recommend saying you did it wrong and saying, how do I do this? Whether it's a zoning issue or whatnot. Because in most cases, if your intent is good, they're going to try to find a solution. They're not coming at it to cause you pain. And lastly is if you're offering something that somebody already does that's not as interesting, it's much harder to do here. So if you are going to start a business here, I highly recommend trying to find a white space where there isn't something. It's just hell to sell in Japan unless it's a new thing. So I'm just going to tell a few anecdotes from my experience. I had a retired corporate manager from a very Japanese company tell me, John, your Japanese isn't good enough. Do not speak it. They don't want to hear it. Bring a translator. So that's a little bit where I talked a little bit previously. I thought I was showing goodwill. Like I tried. I can speak a little bit, but no, better to just take away the fear of miscommunication. Make sure they feel comfortable and like they can communicate. This was fun. I went into the post office, presentation, I found my way with the translator. to the top office. This is what we're doing. I didn't talk, the translator talked, it was a teammate. End of meeting, thumbs up. Yeah, sure, we know who you are now. We understand why all this foreigner mail is coming to you. We're getting like 100 pieces of mail a day, all for foreign people, and they were a little freaked out. But yeah. If you are going to launch a project or anything, I highly recommend starting with consumers and not going B2B. Foreign residents are also a great place to start. I know it's a little less focused on real estate, but in my experience, you guys should sell to each other first. You'll just get much better feedback, much faster adoption than if you try to go and sell to a Japanese company. I think. I'm going to step back for a second, and this all ties in. So like bank accounts, why are they so hard to get? Heavily regulated. The Japanese bank wants to be able to communicate with you. If you don't speak Japanese, how are they going to ask you, was this transaction legitimate? What was it for? They can't. So they don't want to give you the bank account. So some of these barriers are on the back of, it's not because you're a foreigner. It has to do usually with communication or them trying to meet their requirements and their responsibilities towards their roles. So, yeah. Short presentation, guys. I'll open it up to questions.